Martin, what is risk aversion?
Well, before I get into that, a number of people have been asking about the books that I've written. So here's the latest one, Conversation with Jelly. It's about a young man who meets an old sage, and the old sage fills him in on what the real nature of life is rather than the fairy stories we get told in society. Before that, I wrote a book called Minority Interest, which is really an analysis of how human beings work. And Corporeal Fantasy, which was the first one I wrote several years ago now, which is about the nature of our society and life as a whole. And finally, it's not really in the same genre as those, but I wrote that because I was in the IT industry for a long time. And I saw lots of corruption and stupidity. So, yeah, easy. They're all available on Amazon. Right, risk. People can be categorized in one of three ways: risk averse, risk neutral, or risk preferring. Now, this was a big topic for me once upon a time, many years ago, 30 years ago, thereabouts, when I used to lecture on these things or speak at seminars. And I'd run a little experiment, and the experiment went like this. I'd have two envelopes, one with a 20 euro note in it, the other one with nothing, and people couldn't see which one had got the money in it. And I'd say, would anybody like to bet 10 euros to pick one of these envelopes? Because the expected return from that little experiment is 10 euros. You know, people either win 0 or 20. The average is 10. So the two envelopes, I'd hold them up. And this was an audience mainly of business managers. And business managers are not the greatest or the most creative people or the biggest risk takers on earth. So I'd hold these up because they had the chance of betting 10 and getting 20. And nobody would take the risk apart from one woman. And I don't know if that's because women are greater risk takers, but and she picked the wrong envelope, 0. But what she didn't know was that there's a third envelope with 30 euros in it. So she did quite nicely out of that. But that's risk aversion. I'm not going to take a risk. Why should I take a risk? If it's not broken, I'm not going to fix it, which is, you know, a pretty good attitude to have for many activities in life. But if you want to not be part of the herd, you need to take risks. Anyway, so that's risk aversion, not even taking a risk when you know that the average outcome is going to be equal to your bet. So the second one is risk neutral. If somebody came to that game, they'd probably play it. They know that the payback, the average payback, is pretty much the same as their bet. So they'd probably pay it. They're not bothered one way or the other. They might play it, they might not. What they certainly wouldn't do is they wouldn't play a game where the average payback was negative, like the lottery. Yeah. When you play the lottery, your average payback is going to be negative. It's just the way it is. Right, and the third thing is risk preferring. Now, what kind of person is a risk preferring person? Well, an entrepreneur, obviously. They have to take a risk, not knowing what the outcome is going to be. They don't do it stupidly. Maybe they work out some kind of expected reward from it all. But you have to be a risk-preferring person if you're going to essentially make more of your life than most people do. But as I say, it's not stupid risk taking. It's just the willingness to take risks, which is a risk preferring person. Different areas of life will require a different approach to risk. So maybe some people are very, very risk averse when it comes to their diet, or the kind of people that they pal around with. Other people might be risk preferring. You know, oh, this is a new dish. This looks interesting. I'll take it. They're risk preferring. Or here's some dodgy looking characters. I'll hang around with them for a while. So it depends on the area of life. But you know, in business, you definitely get risk preferring, risk neutral, and risk averse people. For humdrum jobs where you don't want people to make any kind of mistakes, you need risk-averse people. If you want to get ahead of the competition, you need risk-preferring people. And that's the way it works. Your average person is risk-averse, which is why risk-preferring people can do very well.